Making the Invisible Visible, Black Women 365 Days of the Year. Each day will spotlight a remarkable woman whose story has shaped Black, British or global diasporic history. Women whose achievements are too often overlooked. Through these daily short films, we create a living, breathing archive of leadership, creativity, resistance and legacy. Let's begin.
So, hi, my name is Nicola Rollock. I am Professor of Social Policy and Race at King's College London. And there I supervise PhD students and support the doctoral school around their work with PhD students and prospective students as well. I also am director of NIANRO Consulting, which, as the name implies, is a research consultancy. And we work with organizations and with individuals as well to help them improve their understanding of race and racism. And in the case of organizations, to help them implement better strategies for change. And I'm also an author. So I'm author of a book called The Racial Code, Tales of Resistance and Survival, which is published by Penguin Press. So that's a bit about what I do, but does it speak to the entirety of who I am? No, it doesn't. Obviously, I sit before you. I'm a Black woman of a certain age, a particular class background, and I would say that I'm concerned about how we think about issues of race, racial equity in the UK. I think we're going backwards. And that concerns in particular in the context of anti-Blackness. But I'm more than that. So outside of that, I love the creative industries. I love art. I enjoy playing tennis. I'm probably more competitive than I am competent. And I love baking as well. And the piece of work and the moment in policy that's influenced me most has to be the Stephen Lawrence inquiry. I was a young woman when the Lawrence inquiry was published, and indeed when Stephen was murdered. And I obviously at that time had no comprehension of how that inquiry would go on to shape my own career and the way that I came to think about the subject of race and racism. And so in 2008, I was commissioned by the race equality charity, the Runnymede Trust, to carry out what was then the first independent review of examining the extent to which the government had met the 70 recommendations put forward by Macpherson and his colleagues. And the reason that I point to that is because I think I went into it with a sense of naivety, because we're at a moment in certainly my recent history where the government had brought forward or fast-tracked changes to the Race Relations Act. We had funding available, there were conferences, there were race equality councils. It was the first time that we were talking beyond academia in the UK around this term institutional racism. It was on the lips of the average person. And what I found was that all of the recommendations had either been implemented or were well on their way to be implemented. Aside from, that is, those recommendations that pertained to race. And those mainly were around the disproportionality in stop and search and the underrepresentation of Black and minority ethnic officers. These continue to be vexed issues to this day. And I suppose the reason I point to this as formative for me is because I went in wide-eyed and hopeful as a junior researcher, thinking that of course there would be change. Of course there would be, because we had this groundswell of movement, of sympathy for the Lawrence family and for the issue of racism. And yet, despite this, there had been relatively little movement on the topic of race. And indeed, as we sit here today, the issue of race is yet again a burning issue for UK politics and society more broadly. And so 10 years later, I became specialist advisor to the Home Affairs Select Committee's inquiry, Macpherson 20 years on. By the time it was published, it became 22 years on. And I was really struck by the way in which the narrative around the same issues remained exactly that, the same. And so my role as specialist advisor was to work with the clerk, to work with the then chair of the select committee, Yvette Cooper, to advise the chair about which witnesses to call to give evidence, and indeed the nature of the questions that should be asked of them. And I mean, it was fascinating for me in terms of this insight into the political process, and indeed something that I think we don't see often, the way that politicians of different hues work in collaboration with each other in order to pursue this particular agenda or the completion of a review. But there is the side of me that I suppose my friends and loved ones see, which is the very vivacious, analytical, mischievous character who very much is made happy by good food, an amazing restaurant and good company and a really great conversation, as does the theatre. So I have been known to get very high from even just the set design, the way a set has been designed and put together. There's something about that juxtaposition of creativity and analytical mind or perspective that I find absolutely fascinating. The question of the age. I try not to work one day a week. I think it has to be said, I'm obviously a Black woman doing work around equity, around strategy, strategic oversight and change. And it's really important that I give to myself the ability to pause before going back to the heaviness of the work. And I think it's important to stress that the work can be heavy. Not everyone, even if they bring me into their organisation, wants to hear a difficult message or a message that might make them feel uncomfortable. So it's really important that I'm as purposeful with looking after myself as I am about delivering good quality work for clients.
Thank you for joining us for today's story. Making the Invisible Visible is our commitment to ensuring that Black women's histories and contributions are recognised, valued and kept in daily circulation. Across 2026, we will continue to share these powerful narratives, 365 days of impact, brilliance and inspiration. Stay connected, join the conversation and help us champion the women whose journeys continue to shape our world. I'm Paulette Brooks and I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow for the next story.